So by this part of the story, I've come to the point that I've already been held in the county jail for some time now. I'm bouncing back and forth among 4 or 5 different counties and dealing with all these court cases simultaneously. As I mentioned in the last video, the fact that I was arrested while on bail and charged by the Attorney General's office and prosecuted by them rather than the small local prosecutors actually was the thing that ended up saving me. And as I mentioned that, I'll explain a little bit now. Basically, the Attorney General's office has at their discretion the ability to negotiate and to consolidate sentencing with regard to any outstanding cases that are at a lower level, the county level. And the counties don't have that option, meaning if I had not caught those additional serious charges and not been charged with that organized crime and been assigned that special prosecutor, I would have been forced to deal with each individual county on an individual basis and receive sentence from them, never having the opportunity or ability to negotiate for one consolidated packaged deal, as I ultimately ended up being able to do. So that's part of the reason why I say that ended up saving me. So what ended up happening was that the discovery process took a long time. Discovery is basically the evidence that the state intends to use against you should your case reach trial. That is to be revealed to the defense and allow time to have reviewed so you can know what you're going into. Basically, they delayed and delayed and delayed. They wouldn't release any information. Typically, indictment has to come within 180 days of having been incarcerated. My indictment didn't come for more than a year. So they violated many rights in many different ways as a result. So I was of the belief from the beginning that the state's case was very weak. I knew for certain that the Secret Service and some additional agencies came to the county jail and visited with one of my friends who was a co-defendant in these cases with me and basically offered him complete immunity. Now again, he's facing a lifetime in prison with me, and they offered him a deal where he would just sign the paper right there and he'd walk out and be free. And I know that happened because he called a meeting with me immediately after and showed me, and it was proven to me. So I think that the state was basically dependent on one or more of those that are very close to me to have turned against me and become willing to testify against me at my trial, and that never happened. So as a result of that not happening, and in addition, the fact that they didn't actually catch me committing some of these crimes that they're alleging, they were basically conspiracy charges. I was again of the position that their case was weak. So they were trying to intimidate me by packing on these charges and telling me I'm facing all this time. But I understood that they didn't really have that strong a case against me. So with that in consideration, my intentions were to go to trial. I was offered a deal that didn't make sense to me. It involved me being away for a portion of my life that I thought would almost guarantee failure for the remainder of whatever life I had left after prison. And so I wanted to go to trial. As time passed and the trial date kept getting delayed and delayed, we finally made it to the point where we began the jury selection process. And when we reached that point, I was threatened on so many occasions that I was going to get life in prison, they're going to give me the maximum, and don't go to trial. They were trying to persuade me to take a deal, as they do with so many. And most people do take deals. They don't go to trial. So when we began the jury selection, I had basically called their bluff up until that point and told them to go fuck themselves. That the deal offered on the table currently for me is the equivalent of a life sentence anyway. So fuck it. Let's go to trial. And while in trial, regardless of the outcome, I may lose, I may win, but I will absolutely expose and make very clear to the public how the state spent millions and millions and millions of dollars coming after me, one individual. And in the end, the net result of that, they didn't catch me. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't rape anybody. Basically, they got me with some guns and some allegations that I conspired to commit criminal acts with others, though we never actually completed those acts. So it was a bullshit case, basically, and they could never have justified all that taxpayer money being spent on me for that net result. So it was a back and forth, my play, their play, and it was a little dance we did. And so ultimately, they came to the realization that nobody was going to testify against me, and that I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to break. I'm not going to take their plea. I don't care about the conditions of the jail I'm in right now. I'll handle it. And when that happened, they then called for a meeting, in which time they indicated to me that they were willing to work out a deal, to negotiate a deal with me. Now, I don't know if it's out of fear that they would have lost. I don't know what their motivation was, but I can assume that that's what it was. They don't like to lose, and at that point, again, I called their bluff so strongly and aggressively that they knew there was a good possibility they could lose. But in any case, when they notified me of their intention now to negotiate, I told them that I would not negotiate unless they would allow me the opportunity to not only discuss my own sentence, but negotiate on behalf of my friend, who was also a co-defendant at the time. So their response to me was, absolutely not. This has nothing to do with him. We're not gonna negotiate that. Another sticking point was, I told them that if I were to entertain the idea of negotiation with them, that obviously the negotiation would include consolidating all my cases and giving me concurrent sentences for everything, and sentencing me retroactively, meaning all the days I've already been incarcerated would apply towards every single sentence that I received. And so they told me that that was not within their power, and they tried to bullshit me there also. So those were the two sticking points. And I basically told them, then go fuck yourself. We'll go to trial. Fuck you. I'm not negotiating. And if it's not within your means to consolidate these cases, then get your fucking boss here, and I'll talk to the boss, and we'll make it happen. I happen to know that it is within your office's power to do so. So a day or two passed, and they contacted me again and told me that they were now willing to negotiate under my terms. So the best I was able to get from my friend was a 9-year sentence. He had to take a 9-year sentence that he had to do 85% of. And the reason that I couldn't get him better was because he had an additional outstanding case that I was not involved in. One in which I knew that there were people testifying against him, and so he would have lost. And so he went from looking at a realistic 20 to 30-year sentence down to the 9, and that was the best I can do, and we were in agreement that he should take that. So he took that. For me, basically, what they wanted was they wanted a sentence structure that would allow for them to ensure that when I do come out of prison, if I were to get caught again committing any crime, that I would be eligible for extended term, and I would have multiple convictions on my jacket, and they can then put me away for a long time. And so that was part of the deal that I wasn't able to avoid. So that ended up happening. Again, there's a lot of technicalities in this, but to speak in layman's terms, to those that are not familiar, I was sentenced on paper to a term of 20 years. However, it was basically all consolidated to a 5-year sentence. So technically, yes, I'm sentenced to 20 years. There are multiple convictions I received, but in actuality, it was all structured in a way that I had to serve 5 years. And so that was what my ultimate sentence was. And so now at this point, I have basically just taken a deal. I took the deal even though I wanted to go to trial, in part because I felt it very irresponsible to those few people that had stood by me throughout this whole ordeal and that were in the free world and hoping and waiting for me to come home. It wasn't fair for me to roll the dice and take the risk of losing trial just to satisfy my own pride and ego. Whether I was guilty or not, I had a good feeling that I could have won, but I just made the decision based on all the factors at hand that it would be best for me to take the deal. So I'm in the county jail now. I had just taken a deal and just been recently sentenced and about to make the transition from jail to actual prison now.